Broadcasting live from the Business Radio X studios in Atlanta, Georgia, it's time for Atlanta Business Radio, spotlighting the city's best businesses and the people who lead them.
Lee Cantor here, another episode of ATDC Radio, and I am excited to have with me today, I got Adam Gautsch, and he is the Community Engagement Manager with the ATDC. Welcome, Adam.
Welcome. Thanks for having me, and thanks for coming to the ATDC every month.
Oh, we love coming here. So many smart people doing so many amazing things. It's overwhelming for us just coming once a month, but for you every day, your head must explode.
Yeah, it is. It is pretty amazing. We actually, I just came back from a roadshow up to New York and Boston with 13 companies. I think you actually last hour met with one of those guys, and so that was really nice because I got to get a little bit of one-on-one time with a lot of those companies and really get to dig deep. And that was nice because I have, know most of the companies here now and know a little bit about every one of them, but to actually spend some time and learn about deeper in the business is a really cool thing. And I think that's what you guys get to do every month, which is great too for you.
Now, talk about this roadshow a little bit. Now, how long has ATDC been doing this kind of roadshow where you're physically, getting in a plane? Or you have a bus? Is there an ATDC?
No, that's a good idea, though. I like the we'll get one of those mega buses, those right. 2-story mega buses, and head
on out.
Yeah.
And then so you go there with 13 folks that are participating in ATDC and taking advantage of all the great resources. You're connecting them with who? VCs?
Right. So we've done this as I think our 7th roadshow. We do it twice a year, once to the Northeast, to New York and Boston area, and then once out to the West Coast each year. And so it is mostly ATDC companies, but there is any kind of technology company in the state of Georgia can apply. It's an application process to go. And our goal is to, get some of our companies, I'd get companies in Georgia in front of VCs in those areas. So we had a pitch presentation in New York and a pitch presentation in Boston, and obviously do the same thing in California. So that is part of it. And so part of it is to get our companies out there and get some money from those areas. But it's also partially to spread the word of the companies in Georgia to those areas so they know about it. And that has kind of been a really exciting part of it for me. I got to, after the pitches in New York, talk to some of the VCs while they were waiting to meet with a particular company. And they were just blown away at the quality of the companies that we brought. One of them said it was he goes to these type of things all the time. It was the best group of companies he's ever seen. I think part of that for us is we're casting a wide net here. We're trying to grab a lot of different technology companies, and they're also at a pretty mature phase. So like each one of the companies that came with us, all but I think one was cash flow positive, or not cash flow positive, but it has revenue coming in. Their business model is being kind of proven out. And when you're trying to get money from investors, it's always nice to say, we already know how to make money. We just need a little bit of water to make it grow faster. And so that's what they were really excited about. And I think in Atlanta, companies like that really exist a lot. So there's Atlanta and Georgia in general. People are not going to do early stage investments in a company that's a concept or a dream.
Right, a napkin stage yet. Now, when you're talking about going on a roadshow to visit with some VCs and you're trying to convince some of these people that this is a good use of your time to do this, how many VCs do you think that they're getting in front of it? Is this like one or two, or how many?
So in New York, we had 108 RSVP to the event, and I think about half, we usually expect about half to show up, and that was about what happened. About half showed up. And so there was a good number of, 50 or so VCs in the room in New York. Boston was a little bit more difficult. So, we had, probably closer to 15 VCs in Boston. Mm-hmm. And, I'm not 100% sure, and we're trying to figure out that too, is what's the difference in the kind of each ecosystem that we go to. So sometimes in in San Francisco, there's a certain number and set and personality type. And in New York, I think the word of Georgia startups has really gotten out in New York. So it's kind of, people are super excited there. And more and more of the VCs you even talk to there are trying to spend some time in Atlanta each month. It's a day trip for them. They can get on a plane in the morning, meet with a couple of companies, and be home by night, and that's an exciting thing for them. We had a good group of people, and we had a good, exciting crowd there. Sure. And
then I know from the VC standpoint, I've gotten to talk to VCs about this. They're always looking for that, the company. And back in the day, it might be that they can just wait in Silicon Valley and then they're going to appear there.
Right.
But in today's world, these startups are all over the place. Yeah. So to have a bunch of them show up at their doorstep in a bus is kind of attractive, I would think.
Right. Yeah, it is. And, for our companies, it's also attractive to be able to, if you're maybe talking to a VC here in Atlanta, and you say, we're going to go on a road show up to New York and Boston. Maybe
that might accelerate the funding process there a little bit.
Yeah. So, because all the Atlanta VCs are they're super important to our ecosystem. And it's really good that we have as many as we have here. And they are always in constant contact with our ATDC companies. And that's also a really important part of it. But competition never hurt anybody. So a little bit of being able to say we're also willing to go out and find money outside of the area for our companies is something that I think is really cool for us and our companies really appreciate.
So now, how do you help these companies prepare for this kind of trip? Is there any coaching that takes place that helps them kind of get the most out of this? Because this is a big investment of time for them. They are kind of pausing to work a little bit to do this.
Yeah. So that it is very much no one has a week to give up, but they gave up a week for us. And so that's really important for us to do as much as we can to make them succeed. So part of that is we did several rounds of coaching, specifically around pitching and the pitch decks that they're working on. So one-on-one coaching with our ATDC staff. We flew in a coach from San Francisco to kind of help explain how to tell that story to investors in that type of area. We also had a pitch practice here one night where all of the companies came out and pitched in front of local investors and got feedback and help on that kind of stuff. And then in general, what the ATDC does is one-on-one coaching. So there's a lot of that we help with any of these companies as far as getting them ready to talk to people, getting them in front of the right people when they get there, and then just helping them with a follow-up and teaching them and working with them on some of those follow-ups. I mean, some of these companies are sharp as can be and don't need as much help, but we're always there to be able to help and make sure that they do not waste a week of their time. And I don't think anybody feels like that was the case.
So now you've been in this role of community engagement manager for this year, a good chunk of this year. What have you learned in 2019?
Well, so I started in April and really most of my experience in the startup world was in South Carolina, and part of the reason I wanted to come to the ATDC was to learn about the startup ecosystem of Georgia and the startup ecosystem of Atlanta specifically. And I will say that I am kind of humbled at the scale of companies here. That we have 190-ish companies in our portfolio right now, and that is just a very large number of people doing very interesting and hard things to do. So a lot of what I have started to see here is, what Atlanta seems to be really good at is finding a lot of interesting technologies to help large corporations, for one. So, for example, we have somebody's full-time job is connect our companies to like the Home Depots and the Coca-Colas of the world. And I think that we help solve these problems in a lot of interesting ways. What you'll start seeing now is a lot of people with AI and machine learning type platforms to add it on top of their business. And I think that's almost going to be table stakes here pretty soon. So more and more people are doing that. And I think that we at the ATDC and our companies really have started to figure out ways to help that in kind of large corporations and help them move forward in that front. So I think AI might be the kind of top buzzword of 2019 for me. And I think you'll see more of that going forward. And I think that there's going to be more and more people more and more large companies are looking to outsource some of their innovation wing to a organization like the ATDC. So we have verticals in health tech and fintech and marketing tech and all, and I'm forgetting some now, Internet of Things and all this kind of stuff. And I think you're going to start finding companies that say, instead of building up a whole team on an innovation wing, we might be able to at least put some of that money into an organization like the ATDC and help fund 5 or 6 different companies, or help discover and coach 5 or 6 different companies in that area that can help us going forward. And I think that is going to be something where if you see the growth in any of these type of incubators or accelerators, you're going to see some more and more large corporations investing on that side of things, which is really interesting too.
Now, having come from South Carolina now into Atlanta, do you have any advice for maybe in other cities if they're kind of dabbling with this kind of the incubator world or the tech startup world? What are some do's and don'ts you've seen that help make a really vibrant community?
Well, I think step one of that is always answer people's calls. Like it is. So a couple of years ago, I helped start Greenville Startup Week, which is Startup Week is a large group of meetups for technology startups. It was started in Boulder. And so anyways, I went out to Boulder to meet with people who started the Startup Week. And they said that their number one rule of everybody in Boulder is if someone asks you for a meeting, you say yes. And that is kind of the goal of a startup ecosystem, I think, in a lot of ways, is you can't be snooty. You can't say, I'm too good for this meeting, or I'm too busy for this meeting. You find time if someone makes an effort who's trying to grow something and build something to say yes. So I think we do that really well here. Part of that's just like Southern hospitality, but part of it is also an importance of saying if you're, have questions or issues with it, someone here at the ATDC or someone outside of the ATDC that are still building ecosystems, you can find people to say yes to you and take those meetings. I do think that working with a university like Georgia Tech is a big value as well, because then you have this ability to have a kind of back system of ATDC will be 40 years old next year, and there's a reason for that, and part of that reason is there's stability with the university to have a backing to it, and it always
like a talent pipeline.
Yeah, and so everybody that works at the ATDC, for the most part, are entrepreneurs their own right, and they're not going to be here for 40 years. They're going to go and do their next thing and change, and that's part of the value of it, is to bring in new blood all the time. But there's always a foundational element of a university that can help stabilize the ship and move things forward and continue going forward. And I think having those kind of tentpole things are really important. And then having industry large industry that is willing to work with entrepreneurs is a really big deal as well. So being able to find the U.S. Bank Elevons of the world who are, huge corporations and have a lot of security issues and all this kind of stuff, but they've built tools that allow startups to work with them and are encouraging startups to work with them. That kind of stuff is necessary for moving startups from something that can actually make money on a quick basis. Right.
It can accelerate their growth because they have a client kind of or at least somebody to beta test it.
Right. And they had to, that was a real investment for, say, a U.S. bank to say, we're building out infrastructure that is outside of our current infrastructure that allows our potential startups to work with us through this system
in a real life, real world, way.
Without having to mess with actual client data and all that. Exactly. Kind of stuff. And so those type of things you've got to have organizations like that in your area that are willing to do that kind of stuff.
And then you're dealing with, like you said, 190 ATDC companies, and then there's still even more hundreds of people at that kind of beginner startup stage, right? Where they're more at the idea stage that they're learning and then kind of working their way up the ladder to get to the ATDC.
Yeah, so we have a educate level with about 600 members right now, and I would say that there's a lot of value to a lot of the classes there, but we have something called customer discovery, which everybody I talk to is absolutely worth your time to go through that process, no matter where you are. If you're, in fact, back to large corporations, send some of their employees there to learn. Sometimes it is building out a new product inside of your own system, but learning how to go out and interview potential customers, take that data and change what your idea is to something that actually people want to buy is really important. That's basically what customer discovery is. It says, instead of spending 2 years of your life and $100,000 of your own money to build a product that you think people want, you go out and interview people that actually want it
and see if it matches.
Yeah. And change your mind when it doesn't match. Right. And so that system it's
humbling. I'll tell you that. It's humbling.
And it's really, I cannot stress enough how important I think that is. And
right. No, it's critical because if you get that wrong, you're just wasting a lot of time and energy and money.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Now, let's talk about this radio show. We've been doing this show for a while, kind of predated you a little bit, but not by much. Are companies seeing the value of being able to get interviewed and have a piece of content that they can repurpose? I know that when we're interviewing them, they seem very happy in here, but you give us some kind of constructive criticism on how we can make this better moving forward into 2020.
Yeah, so it has been super valuable for me and for the companies that are a part of it. So I think there's a couple of things that are really interesting to me. You guys do a really good job of getting them to tell their story. And almost if you listen back at any of the ones that you guys do,
I know you're a super fan.
I am a super fan. There is a theme of like you ask them kind of basically give me your elevator pitch more or less at the beginning of it. Mm-hmm. And next thing you know, they go on for about a minute of just explaining their business. And oftentimes those people haven't really thought about it.
And articulated, right.
And you get them to do that right away, and it really sets a very good stage for them. And it also allows me to say, clip that out and say, share, this is the elevator pitch of company X, company Y, company Z. And that kind of stuff, giving the people a chance to tell their story in that kind of smart way is super helpful. And getting them to think of their businesses and their companies as stories that they can tell is something that is very helpful. I hope that more of our companies start taking advantage of understanding this is a story. There are themes to your business and your company, and things like Radio X allows those themes and stories to come out quicker. And next thing you know, you have a new sales pitch you didn't even know you had from just talking to you guys, or you have a better understanding of what you've been doing this whole time. But talking about it and talking through it with somebody is always super helpful. And then I've tried to, and to some success and some not success, get some more themed shows in. So we did have a female CEOs podcast I thought was super helpful and super interesting and enlightening. I'd like to see more of that kind of stuff. We had one around fintech.
Right, the verticals we've done. Healthcare IT, we've done kind of different themes on the different verticals that you have here, or enterprise.
That's right.
Now, for you, in terms of the getting the word out about ATDC, I think a lot of the times these interviews really allow the people that you're serving to articulate how important ATDC is and how worthwhile it is for startups in general to at least kind of knock on the door and meet you guys and see if there's something that can be gained from being associated with what's happening here. Because the community and the ecosystem and all the resources are so affordable for every startup. It's just a matter of prioritizing and making the time to come here and take advantage of some of them.
Yes, and thank you for saying that. Yeah, I mean, the education alone is $25 a quarter. I mean, it's the best. It's the absolute best deal in town. But beyond that, for us, we don't do a lot of outside marketing. What we tend to do is let our companies market for us by just showing being able to brag about them and showing off their success. And so at any chance we get a chance to brag about a company or let them brag about themselves, which is sometimes more effort than you would expect.
Think, right. I mean, these people are heads down trying to solve major problems.
And they're, oftentimes a lot of our companies have, we're technical co-founders first, and those people are very serious about working on building their product and understanding that side of things. And I think part of what we need to be, we at the ATDC try to teach and train is sometimes you need to lift your head up and shout your name out so that other people can come and learn about you. And because no one's going to use your product. If you
you don't want to be the best kept secret.
That's right. That's right.
So now, as we kind of wrap 2019, what do you see happening in 2020? What are you most excited about?
Well, there's a couple things that are certainly high on our radar. So one is that we have our 40th anniversary. So we have a showcase every year where our graduating companies, so companies that have over $1 million in recurring revenue 2 years in a row graduate from the ATDC, and we usually have about...
You kick them out.
Yes, right.
Leave the nest.
It's time to go.
Right.
And we have usually around 5 to 8 companies that graduate each year. And so the showcase is A, a graduation for those people, and B, a way to showcase all of the companies that are in the ATDC. And we're going to really blow it out for 2020. We have rented out Georgia Tech's basketball arena in McCamish Pavilion.
Wow.
And we're going to have the whole thing for the day with all of our companies out there and graduation on the basketball court and all that kind of stuff. So,
and when is that? What time of year?
It is spring, May of 2020. So we're excited about that. Really excited about that. And so that is, a lot of the focus. You'll also start seeing if folks come around the ATDC, here in Midtown, you'll start seeing more and more stuff around the 40th anniversary happening here. We're going to have some timelines on the walls and elevator wraps.
History. I mean, a lot of major companies have come through the doors here. It's an amazing story. And ATDC was an incubator before it was cool. I mean, they were kind of early on in this.
I give a lot of tours here, and I always start by saying that, 40 years ago, the state government said we need more technology companies here. Let's build an incubator. And like, how forward thinking of a state government is that to happen 40 years ago? And
there's governments now that don't have it.
Exactly.
They think it's not, maybe this internet thing's not going to be a thing. They're waiting for the next one.
Right. But I think it's really cool that this has been for 40 years, and what technology means in 40 years has changed drastically. What a startup means in 40 years has changed. All these things have changed dramatically, and ATDC has managed to kind of grow and evolve and change throughout
and stay relevant.
Yeah,
I mean, which is an achievement unto itself in the fast-paced world of technology. To still be relevant 40 years later is pretty impressive.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's really cool to be. I'm happy to be a part of it and to learn all about it.
So now, if a company wants to learn more about ATDC, what is kind of, where would you send them for those beginner kind of, I want to learn more resources?
Right. Well, so step one is, of course, is always atdc.org. Of course, listen to the back catalog.
That's it. There's a lot of atdcradio.com. You can go there and get all the episodes that we've ever done here.
And also we do a couple of learning sessions. So the first Friday of every month, there's something called Coffee with a Catalyst, where our catalysts are one of our full-time coaches. Just literally you come out, have coffee. The catalyst will teach you, or will kind of go through the longer story of the ATDC and how you can get involved, and you get to share your idea and meet some other people who are sharing ideas. So that's, I would say that. And then this Thursday, we have Entrepreneurs Night, which is more of our kind of straight beer and pizza type networking event, and open to the public, free to come. I encourage y'all to come to those as well.
So now there's stuff happening all the time regarding that kind of beginner, just kind of meet some people, see if it's a right culture fit, if this is something you want to do. But there's companies all over the country, all over the world that maybe have an idea that is getting some traction. If they want to take it to the next level, you have companies move here, right, to be part of the ATDC ecosystem.
Yeah, we do. And that's a really exciting part. So sometimes what happens is people will go through one of these accelerators, say a 12-week type accelerator, and then they say, now what? Because they get really jazzed up and excited and get a lot done in 12 weeks, but they don't have that next step. And oftentimes we're a really good answer to now what? We say, well, come to ATDC, work here full time, get coaching, get all this kind of stuff. So we have Arjun of Toucan AI, I think has been a previous guest here. Their company started as an MIT accelerator, and he was said, now what? And he moved down to Atlanta for now what, or their company did. We're having a couple of companies from the most recent Techstars here in Atlanta who came here for the Techstars accelerator and said, well, Atlanta's a pretty cool city. Cost of living is a lot better than San Francisco. Now what? Let's see if we can't work with ATDC. So they're coming into the program through that way. So there are people like that find Atlanta. I mean, coming from South Carolina, real estate. Atlanta seems high to me, but coming from San Francisco or New York, real estate does not seem. Yeah. So you see more and more folks coming in that way too, which is pretty cool.
And it doesn't matter if you're in a tech startup, you should know about ATDC. It doesn't matter where you are in the world. It doesn't matter what stage of a company you are. There's resources for you, and it's a very welcoming, collaborative environment.
Thank you for saying that. I agree, and I'm not going to argue with you for sure.
All right. One more time, the website?
ATDC.org.
All right, Adam. Thank you so much for what you do. It's so important to kind of bring the community together, and you do a great job. We appreciate working with you, and we look forward to it every month.
Great. Thank you.
All right. This is Lee Cantor. We will see you all next time on ATDC Radio.